What's up YouTube, Saf here on SuperSaf TV and welcome to another epic SuperSaf style camera comparison, this time between the HTC 10 and the LG G5. So in the usual style we'll be looking at both the front and rear facing cameras and images as well as video too. Do also look out for the audio icon in the corner of the screen and that will indicate to you which device the audio is coming from too. And I'll be switching between these two to give you guys an idea of the differences in audio as well. So we're currently outdoors, it's an absolutely beautiful day and we're using the front facing cameras on both devices. And now I'm just going to be taking a little bit of a walk because the HTC 10 does have optical image stabilization on the front facing camera. So we're just going to see if that makes much of a difference. They are mounted to the same device. And then we're going to be switching to the rear facing cameras and doing lots of tests, including low light tests. So do hit that thumbs up button and let's get straight to it. So now we're filming from the rear facing cameras outdoors as well. We are filming in 4K. Now this video is exported out at 1080p, but this does mean that we can crop in and get lots more detail. Now just to test out the stabilization, I'm just going to be taking a walk here on the rear facing cameras and seeing how well they do. Just going to start walking a little bit more aggressively, see if that makes a difference. Let me know what you think. So now we're indoors with the LG G5, just testing out the autofocus. Seems to be doing pretty well. Now same lighting with the HTC 10. Also seems to be doing pretty well. So that was the video. Now before we move on to some images, just to clarify that everything was shot on auto because that's what most people will be using, and to keep things as fair as possible. For the front facing cameras, you've got 8 megapixels on the LG G5 and 5 megapixels on the HTC 10. Now the HTC 10 does have optical image stabilization from the front facing camera, so this will be interesting to see how much of a difference that makes. For the rear facing cameras, the HTC 10 has a single 12 megapixel camera, whereas the LG G5 has a pretty unique setup consisting of a 16 megapixel primary camera as well as an 8 megapixel ultra wide angle camera. So we'll be trying out some shots from both here so you can see a difference. Now if you want to customize the look of either of these devices, then I definitely recommend picking up a skin from Dbrand. And thanks to Dbrand for making this video possible. Dbrand have a huge variety of skins for lots of different devices, and you can pick and choose the different elements using their online customization tool. I'll be leaving a link to Dbrand in the description below, so definitely do go ahead and check them out. Now let's kick off with some selfies. So this is your standard SuperSaf style car selfie. I think both are doing a good job here. Although I do overall like the LG G5 image better. I mean, if you look at the dynamic range towards the back, you can see that the HTC 10 is blowing out the highlights a little bit, whereas those are much better maintained on the G5. And you can see that fence there, which does look really nice, and the image overall does look a tad sharper on the G5, and that is down to the fact that it's got a higher resolution. The HTC 10 is a little bit wider, so it might be a little bit better for your group selfies. Now going in 100%, you can see that we can crop in much further here on the G5 because of that high resolution, and I definitely do like that the details aren't as sharp or clear on the HTC 10. Now going into an indoor shot in room lighting, I actually like the image a little bit better here on the LG G5. I was expecting the HTC 10 to do a little bit better because of the OIS, but I can't see too much of a benefit here. Now let's go in 100%, and here if you look towards my beard, you can see that we have more detail on the LG G5, whereas on the HTC 10 some software processing is going on and those details in my beard have been lost. Now using the front facing flashes on both devices, so these illuminate the front screens to give you some more light. Once again, I do like the image here on the LG G5 better. It's just a tad brighter, and once again a little bit more detail. We'll go in 100%, and this confirms that the LG G5, for me anyway, does do better, and I would give the edge for the front facing images to the LG G5. Now moving on to some outdoor shots. Firstly, we've got a macro shot here of some flowers. I think both are doing great. You've got a nice shallow depth of field here on both too. Colors are quite a bit different. You've got more cooler tones on the LG G5. You've got much warmer tones on the HTC 10. Now this is going to come down to your personal preference, but I do like both images. Going in 100%, we can crop in much further on the LG G5, and that is because you've got more resolution here to play with, but I think both are doing a great job overall. You've got some nice sharp detail. Now moving on to an outdoor wide image, both are doing really good. This is the primary camera on the LG G5, and I can see that it's got better dynamic range. You can see more of those details in the foreground. You can see that birdhouse a little bit better on that tree in the foreground, whereas on the HTC 10 it is getting a little bit lost in the shadows there. Now this is a perfect opportunity to try out the wide angle lens on the LG G5. And boom, this is what I love about the LG G5. From the same position, you can fit in so much more because of that wide angle lens, and it's absolutely awesome for landscapes. Let's test this out a little bit more. So here, using the primary camera initially on the LG G5, and I can see that you've got better dynamic range once again. Those clouds are a little bit better maintained compared to the HTC 10, which is blowing out those highlights a little bit. Slight differences in color will come down to your personal preference. Now trying out that wide angle lens once again, and boom, look at that once again. You can fit in so much more in the picture. The dynamic range isn't as good as it was on the primary camera, but you do have lots more in that shot, which is a big plus if you are somebody who likes taking lots of landscape shots. Now let's start trying out some low light images. So this is under room lighting. The LG G5 actually looks a little bit better here to me. You've got a brighter image, but let's go ahead and dip the light down even further. Now here, the HTC 10 has a brighter image, but it does seem to have a little bit more noise. So let's go in 100%. And here you can see that the LG G5 seems to be getting rid of some noise using some software processing, because it does look a little bit artificial here. But the HTC 10 is a little bit brighter, so I'm not too sure how to call this one. It's gonna come down to your personal preference. Now let's go outside. And here the HTC 10 does seem to be performing better in outdoor low light situations. So you can see that it's a brighter image with some more detail. Let's go in 100%. And here you can see that we do have more detail with a brighter image on the HTC 10, and I think this does come down to the larger individual pixel size. Now for the final shot, let's look at some images using the rear flash, and I like the LG G5 image better here. I think the HTC 10 is a little bit too on the yellowish side, so this might come down to your personal preference, but I do like the G5 better here. So there we have it, the epic SuperSaf style camera comparison between the LG G5 and the HTC 10. I think both did a great job, and they're definitely some of my favorite smartphone cameras out there at the moment. For the front-facing camera, I would give the edge for images to the LG G5. I think you had a better dynamic range and also more detail because of the 8 megapixels versus the 5 megapixels. And it also seemed to perform better in low light situations. This is something that I was expecting the HTC 10 to perform better in because of the optical image stabilization on the front facing camera. But for video, I did like the HTC 10 for the front facing camera a little bit better. And when I was walking, I think it was a little bit more stable because of the OIS. Now for the video from the rear facing cameras, I like the quality a little bit better on the LG G5. I think it was a little bit sharper, and also the autofocus was a little bit more smooth. But the HTC 10 does have better optical image stabilization, so when I was walking, you could see that it was a little bit jittery on the LG G5, so I did prefer this on the HTC 10. For images from the rear facing camera, I did like those from the LG G5 a little bit better. I think you had a better dynamic range, and especially that wide angle camera is great for landscapes. The HTC 10 did seem to perform better in low light outdoors, however, so this is going to come down to what you take more shots of. And for the audio, I'm going to let you go back and have a listen. Personally, I do think I like the HTC 10 a little bit better. Although it wasn't as loud, it did do a slightly better job of cancelling the noise, especially outdoors. So it looks like we had some mixed results overall, but both did perform well. What do you think? Do drop me a comment below and let me know your thoughts. If you want to see more images from lots of different devices, then definitely go ahead and give me a follow on Instagram. I hope you enjoyed this video and found it useful. If you did, then please do hit that thumbs up button for me. It really does help me out. And if you haven't already, then be sure to subscribe. This is the place for smartphone camera comparisons on YouTube. Do not accept any imitations. There's lots about these days. Thanks for watching. This is Saf on SuperSaf TV, and I'll see you next time.